All right.
Take me there.
Take you there?
Yeah.
Take you to California?
I deal with it. Just like,
Well,
I'm fine living in that, like, you know,
I can totally deal with it for a short window of time, and then I'd like to go home
yeah.
because it is a little crazy. But if you haven't been through Big Sur and up and down the Pacific Coast Highway, PCH and all that, it's worth it. So it's super cool.
We went right before the fires, and so
Oh,
it
yeah.
was really eerie to see
Yeah.
everything that because we drove the PCH, and so we
Yeah.
drove the whole thing, and then 2 weeks later, the fires, and I'm just like, oh my God, I know
It's
exactly
gone.
where that is. That was that little kid
Yeah.
restaurant, that was that massive house that
Yeah.
was right, you know, I mean, like.
That's
it was
what I
really
felt
eerie
about.
to Like, we had pictures, like, still at the top of my camera roll.
Yeah.
And all of it was gone.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's the way I felt about Lahaina in Hawaii when it got
Yeah.
destroyed. I'm like, we were just there. We
Felt like
recognized
losing a friend.
everything. Say what?
Felt like you lost a friend.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like for me when that Lahaina thing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're, I know, isn't it crazy? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, how does this happen on an island? But anyway, I clearly above my pay grade. So, all right, what are you guys seeing and feeling out there? What's your thoughts? Yes, it's hot.
I saw a stat yesterday, and
Yeah, we're talking about anything.
so we are live streaming this, so if you're not speaking into this, you're not being heard.
Oh, okay. So I'll repeat what they say then. I'll repeat their thoughts.
Okay, perfect. And I'll try to run the mics where I can. But to answer your question, I saw a stat yesterday, and it was that year over year, June 25 versus June 24, housing prices are down throughout the MSA, throughout DFW, 3.74%
Really?
on the average.
Wow.
And I'll bet you your numbers are going to probably reinforce that.
Yeah, they're pretty close. The difference is, the problem is there's 3 different sources you can get these from. And I think the one you're referencing coming out of the MLS is probably the most comprehensive.
I don't know that it's MLS. Honestly, it was something James Shaw had posted,
Okay.
and it was a national picture, so I'm going to say it's probably the Z-Monsters numbers.
Yeah, it probably is. We're seeing kind of flat across the board in most situations, but the problem is most of the data that we have does not take into consideration cash sales or only mortgage-based sales, and some of them don't even take into consideration anything other than conventional deals. So it's kind of hard to get a true number on it, but I do believe what you just said is true. And I just read an article this morning that they were talking about how there is, they listed Vegas, Phoenix, Dallas, and most of Florida, or I'm sorry, Texas, and most of Florida as the first places leading the charge in prices coming down.
Florida's getting hammered. I think the number one was Coral Gables. Like, don't quote me on that, but I do remember the stat,
Yeah.
and it was down 11.88.
Yeah, anything around Tampa is getting destroyed, I know that.
Tampa, yeah.
Tampa's
Tampa was a
getting
big one
beat
too. I
up.
think they were in the 8s.
Yeah.
Tampa, Bradenton.
Yeah,
I
yep,
think
yep.
it's a force. I mean, people are because of the insurance rates. So it's a way to combat
Yeah.
that. You know,
Insurance
I mean,
rates.
You know, I mean, when you got, I mean, it's basic economics. I mean, what goes, you know, the scale's got to move
yeah.
one way or the other, and you're either going to continue to have these insane insurance. Home prices are going to go up or down depending.
Here, we're gonna give Carrie the mic.
Yeah, because Carrie's got a good
We
point.
really don't have to hear everything that I
We
say.
need like one of those big boom mics that we can just put up
That's
here.
the mic around.
But-
Yeah,
You know,
we need
No,
a
I
big
was just
boom.
saying that
share company, so.
True that.
everybody sit in one little circle and use the mic at the same time. But no, I was just saying that I really feel, and I could be off by this, but I really feel that, you know, it's basic economics. You know, if something goes up, something else has to go down.
Yeah.
And when you have insurance rates skyrocketing through the roof and almost making it unobtainable to get a mortgage because of insurance,
Yeah.
the home prices are probably going to come down. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think
Right.
that they've been overly inflated for quite some time.
Agreed.
The fact that Texas and Florida both had huge increases within the last 10 years, and honestly within the last 5 to 6 years, and not a natural increase, but a straight up, you know, increase. So home prices do need to come down, and I think one, they just kind of naturally need to, but two, I think it's because of the insurance.
Oh, I think taxes is playing a big role too.
Taxes, yeah, taxes, insurance.
And, you know, someone said the other day, when I was teaching this class, like, well, the only problem with taxes though is that they went up a couple years ago and they haven't really gone up. Like this year, they didn't go up a whole lot. Last year, they weren't as much. But remember, we've got that 10% cap, and a lot of places have that, not just Texas. So what we're still seeing is, yeah, they jacked the value up 3 years ago, but we're still catching up with that cap. So we're getting a 10% increase every year. At least I know we are at my house. I can tell you that for sure. So we're still significantly under the market value, but we're probably even quite a bit under where they say the market value is. So I'm still going to have increases next year and the year after, more than likely. So before I catch up.
So I read the other day, somebody said that if the interest rate goes down, that would create a problem. I'm thinking that would be great, then people are going to start buying, but it was one of our national experts on it.
Yeah,
Didn't want the interest rates to go down.
Forgive me, my phone was ringing. I thought I shut that thing off. So, you know, the thing about the interest rate conversation, for me at least, is that while the rates do matter, number one, they have to go down quite a bit to make a big difference. And that's the thing a lot of people don't realize is they've got to go down probably at least 1% for us to really feel a significant difference. The other thing is, I kind of don't want the rates to go down until this thing kind of flushes its way out a little bit more, like the slight price decreases or whatever, even just staying flat for a few years, because I'm afraid it's going to bring all the pent-up demand back in from the buyers. And if we do that, we're just going to go right back up. It's kind of the same concept with the Fed right now saying we don't want to lower rates too soon, because if we do, then we run the risk of pulling off a 1970s deal again where we went way up, came almost all the way down, and they went, oop, we're good now, and then we actually went up higher again than where we were before. So that's my fear. I don't want to see that happen.
No,
We're already unaffordable. We don't need to get worse.
no, and we need things to level out. We don't
Yeah.
need things to go up or down.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the majority of the people that I listen to are talking about, and it makes sense in my mind, is that we don't need to go up or down. We just need to get level somehow, and that's small little tinker things, that's small little, you know, like I was saying, I'm repeating myself, but natural adjustments versus, okay, let's try this out and see what happens.
Agreed. We're gonna see, Mike, we need a boom mic. That's all there
I
is
know,
to it.
well, he's back there looking at me,
Giant.
but I'm just saying that we need things to level out more
Yeah.
versus making crazy changes in something that's going to cause it to go up or down dramatically.
I agree 100%.
And I don't know exactly, that's over my pay grade on exactly how to do that and to how to make things do that. But, I mean, with you saying that prices are going down, nothing dramatic has been done on a national level to cause that. It's just kind of settling a little
They went
bit.
too high. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the bottom line. I'll throw something out there, I would say somewhat controversial, and to your point, I would rather see this market get healthier by prices coming down, even 10%, versus rates coming down. Because if prices come down, you and I will definitely be happy with that. There will be more buyers and there will be more sellers because they're afraid they've missed the top and all of those things. We will get a little bit healthier. And you can always refinance, that's correct. The problem though is if rates come down, it's going to be one of those unhealthy type situations where it's just too many people, right? But if rates are still high, then you will still have people on the sidelines, which is not a bad thing because an orderly drop down to more affordable prices is a good thing, I think. So I'd be curious if that would help out.
Well, rates used to be 12 and 15%, where people complaining.
Oh,
They
yeah,
did
rates used to be 12,
12%.
15.
When I got in the business, they were 7.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I
27.
sold
No,
seven to 10.
don't
all
age
that.
yourself over there. You're aging yourself over there, girlfriend.
She's not,
No,
she's
the,
crazy young. She's talking
yeah,
about 4
well,
years ago.
Huh?
She's talking about 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah, when she was 18.
She was 18.
Well, the other thing is, you know, we're also, and I've said this ad nauseum, we're also dealing with people that can't complete 5th grade math, but all of a sudden understand how interest rates work, you know, and I mean that in the
Nicest possible way.
nicest possible way.
Nicest. All due respect.
But you know, we talk about the interest rates so much, but the price hike is, you know, really hurting us, and that's what our taxes are based off of, and all of these other things. And so, anyway, I do think for your original question was what we're seeing in the market. I do see more people coming into the market, that have been in the sidelines, and I've been seeing that for a little while now,
Yeah,
where some
I agree.
people are, sitting on the sidelines, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, I've waited long enough, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I've got to buy, I've got to move, I've got to do this, and so it's just, they held on for as long as they could, thinking
Yeah.
some magic
Yeah.
pill was going to be taken and it was going to all be fixed,
Hey,
but
I'll tell you, except
they're
for
just there.
probably except for 2020 and 2021, and maybe even we'll call it just 2021, because 2020, COVID didn't really hit us where we actually took off until April.
Right.
So it was a little slow prior to that. A lot of people have forgotten. It was kind of a tough market in 19, early 20. So excluding those 2 years, possibly, and maybe only one of them, we just had our best first 7 months of a year, period. And in a really tough market. But part of the reason is because our past clients came back out that have those 2.5% and 3% rates. In fact, I just talked to one on my way over here today, that once he has to refinance and pull cash out because he's got to do something, and he's going from a 2.625 to probably around a 7. And he's just like, I got to do it. And so we're seeing that a ton right this moment. Do any of you guys ever feel like Carrie should start all of her sentences with "bless your heart"? Some of you know what I mean when I say that.
I try to be nice about it.
Do you?
I do.
You are very nice about it.
I am.
That's
I try
why
to be nice about it, but
That is the perfect
sometimes
slogan for you.
it is.
because
Bless your
Instead of
heart.
saying, gosh, you're stupid, you could just start with "bless your heart."
Bless your heart, and I say it with my eyes.
Yes, exactly. I have no doubt. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, so a couple of quickie things, and let's get started here real fast. So I would say, yes, you guys are right. We're feeling the same thing. Definitely slower. One thing that's happened in the last month or so, so sometime in June, right after the holiday, the new apps really started slowing down. They didn't pick up again until about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I would say probably about a week after the July 4th holiday. But now that they've picked back up, the quality is significantly lower. Significant, like as an example, my August closings, my average loan amount will be almost half of what it was in July. And some of those are good loans, but they're just very small loans. Like I got a contract here, say, 380 sales price, putting down 250, so it's a $130,000 loan. So we're seeing a lot of smaller deals come through. On top of that, we're seeing a lot of harder deals come through. Low credit scores, we're having to fix them, we're Band-Aiding everybody's income, assets, we're turning over couches, things like that. So that's the type of stuff that we're seeing come through. And just this week, I've now had 3 pre-approvals in a row with a less than 550 credit score. And that's pretty unusual to see like that little chain come through. And in fact, one of them was 430-ish. Like you have to work to get to 430. Like you put some effort into that. You didn't just happen by accident. So that one's definitely a bless your heart moment. But that's the type of stuff that we're seeing. And so it's just weird. And now on the other side of that, every once in a while I run into an agent and goes, I'm having the best year I've ever had. So it is out there. We just have to go work and find it. So
to another point, sorry. I'm also getting sellers right now that, because we're in a buyer's market.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
if we haven't really technically announced it, we absolutely are.
we are.
But I have sellers that don't have the ability to compete with other sellers or new builds or that kind of thing because they don't have the ability to put in what they need to into the house to get what they need out of it.
Sure.
And so they don't have the equity, they don't have the liquid assets to be able to do it. And so that could also be a reason that we're seeing some price drops in there is that, or the price is going down is because we have people that don't have the liquid assets to be able to get their house to the top of
Yeah.
the market and to the top of what their house could be worth.
Yeah.
And so they're having to sell it at a reduced price. And then also offering seller concessions, so they're walking with less
Yeah.
than what they technically should be.
Part of the reason that I think we're seeing that is because our buyers are more picky now, which is a good
Yes.
thing. I've got no problem with that. Like,
Right.
I had a massive issue during COVID with the,
Oh,
I'll just pay whatever you want and it can be in the worst condition ever. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not a good decision, guys.
No.
But they would do it anyway. but now they're being very picky.
Right.
And so we're seeing more and more. And to your point, I got a phone call 2 days ago, a client of mine who's been looking forever, and they called because they found a house that has a VA loan on it which is assumable. And the rate's like upper twos, 2.75-ish. So they were asking me about it, and they're not vets. So they can assume it, but the veteran has to give up their VA benefits going forward if they do that. And so most of the time, that means 100% no dice. I would say 98% of the time, the veteran's like, I'm not giving you all of my benefits and never doing this again. And this was not an older seller. This was a still probably younger seller, and they said they would give up their benefits if they would just take the house because they needed to get out from underneath it. Now, turns out they didn't really like the house that much, so they're not going to do it. But it was very clear to the agent involved that they needed to move on. They got to get out of here, and they were willing to give up a really big opportunity for future purchases to get out of that house. And if you have a 2.75, you are never, ever going to see that refinanced. You'll have to wait until they sell that house someday. So that's interesting, at least from what I'm seeing. Is it tracking again, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, let's talk about a couple things, guys. We're going to jump in. I'm going to show you a few slides that are going to kind of go, like Mike said, we're going to reinforce a little bit about what we're seeing out there and what's going on. Well, shoot, it was working just a minute ago. Now it doesn't want to work again. I think it's literally just this building because I come in here and it never wants to work. But when I go to other places, I was in Denton 2 days ago and it worked just fine. So, all right, let's jump in. So inflation creeping back up again. You've heard a lot of stuff in the news about President Trump really wearing out the Fed. You've got to drop rates, you got to drop rates. But we just mentioned a minute ago, you drop rates too quick, inflation goes back up. Well, you can see we're not going up to a big number, but 2.3 at the bottom, and we want to be at 2, and now we're back to 2.7. And unfortunately, we're at that 2.7, and it's rising. They're seeing internal components that are just starting to go up, but a lot of them have not yet, and they know they will. So this number is probably going to creep up a little bit. Now, this is the consumer inflation. This is the official number that gets reported. The Fed actually watches an inflation number called PCE, which came out today. Usually comes out the last day of the month or the next to last day of the month. That's the one that they care the most about, and it was unexpectedly higher today than they thought it was going to be. So ultimately what that means is the Fed can't cut rates if inflation's moving back up. They're going to have to hold us steady because they run the risk of this 2.7 turning into 7.7, and they don't want to do that. We don't want to do that either. We don't want to go back to that level.
It took a pretty big
What's
jump.
PCE?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and
Thank you.
that's all you ever hear referred to as is the PCE. Give me a few minutes, I'll come back around to it. I was going to say, you might ask Google for me while we're looking there. No, that's PPI. So there's CPI,
Expenditures?
thank you. Personal consumption expenditures. Thank you.
She knew
Yes,
that.
that's the one out. So there's consumer, CPI, then there's producer, PPI, then there's PCE, personal consumption expenditures, which it's kind of like the whole, our prices going up or down. Well, it depends on whether or not you use the NAR model or the NBA model it's the same thing over here. There's 4 different ways of looking at inflation, and PCE is the one that the Fed cares about. So that's the one that moved up again today. So not great news out of that. We kind of expected that it was going to go up, but we didn't expect it was going to go up as much. Okay, so here's the thing. From a government standpoint, here's the other piece that's kind of working in their favor for not dropping rates, is we still have very low unemployment, 4.1% unemployment. Now, we're going to get a new report tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. But as of right now, this number just kind of stays very steady. Here's the thing, though. I'm going to give you a little bit of a contrarian view on this. So going back to the Biden administration, even as we were coming through COVID, this number always stayed pretty stable. And everybody said, oh, well, the Biden administration is manipulating the number. Okay. Well, now we get into the Trump administration, and it's still very stable. It really doesn't move. And the reason I think that's interesting is because of this one right here. This is the ADP report. So the official government number is really steady. It doesn't move a whole lot. But the ADP report, which measures only private sector hirings, actually dropped last month. We lost jobs last month. And you can see we've been on a downward trend since about October of last year. So this is a competing number that shows a very different labor market than the one the government keeps showing us. And through both administrations, we keep having really good stability, and they say everything is great, everything is rosy, but this is painting a different picture. So we're going to wait and see what happens. I think this one will, in fact, I can tell you the July number is already probably going to bounce back a little bit, but not much. We're not going to get above these out here. And so we're definitely seeing a much smaller increase in that one than we do on the, what they call the BLS report of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay. So next screen over, if I can get it to move. Texas still hanging in there, 4.0. We've been consistently about 0.1 below the rest of the market, so nothing special going on there. But let's talk interest rates. That's the one everybody wants to kind of jump in anyway. So here's the thing about rates. Number one, pretty steady. Not seeing a whole lot of movement. I mean, you are seeing a lot of volatility through here, but we're basically in this trading channel right here. And essentially that channel is about 6.625 to about 6.99. That's what we're seeing consistently. We get a couple of days where we bounce into the 6.6, 6.7 range, and then we bounce back up to 6.8. There's nothing really, so remember, this is the line that I kind of watch to see if we think we're in the right spot. In the middle means that rates are just perfect. That's the perfect porridge. These rates are probably a little bit on the too hot side, and they probably need to get higher, cool down a little bit, and then vice versa. So right now, we're kind of in that area where rates probably are okay to maybe need to go up a little bit, which is not good. That's not what we want to hear, right? But I think personally, there's nothing on the horizon coming up to move these numbers a lot. That's my concern. So it would take something dramatic to move those numbers. And look, we got 2 wars going on, and both of them escalating right now. We've had this tariff thing come in, which really shocked the markets. Like nothing that we've done, by the way, this is where Trump announced his tariffs right here. Nothing that we've done except for that day has really moved this market a lot. So unless something materially changes, I'm not really sure we're going to see a lot of adjustment on that. Now, what does that translate into? Well, kind of funky, weird mortgage apps. So these mortgage apps, obviously the blues are positive and then these yellows are negative, is once we got to about this spot right here, these should have all been positive. Like that's typically what we see in a normal buying season. Every week, mortgage apps moving up a little bit from the previous week. We've had some really big adjustments here. You can see all of these, but these are refi movements, not purchase money movements. The purchase money stuff has looked more like this. So we're seeing a just flattening of mortgage apps. Technically, they're actually down a little bit on the purchase side year over year. The only reason anybody says that mortgage apps are up is because refinances have shot through the roof. Which, why would refis go up when we're talking about 7% rates?
People got debt.
People got debt. That's exactly right. That was the call I had this morning. You know, and now this guy's doing it right. I'm not going to pick on him for having debt. You know, he's found this little home in Arkansas that he wants to buy as an investment property, and he put a cash contract on it, but he doesn't have the cash. So I was like, first of all, how'd that realtor let that happen? And so now he's got to cash out of his existing home here in order to pay for it. He's a smart dude. This is probably his third go around with me, so he already knew what the numbers were going to be, so he's good. But that's what we're seeing, is stuff like that. I got to buy a house, I got to send a kid to college, I got to pay off my credit cards, etc. This is the purchase side. So this is just purchase apps. We strip out all the refinance noise, and you can see, number one, hanging out at the bottom, not cool, and number two, taking a big leap down or a big move down in the last couple of months, which is not what we want to see. Again, we should still have been climbing probably through July, and then we kind of coast back down a little bit. Anybody ever taken off out of Orange County, John Wayne Airport? You know what you do when you come out of John Wayne? You do straight up like a rocket ship, and then they cut the engines and you go, woo! And all the kids in the back go, woo! And the parents go, oh my God! That's kind of what we see, but so it's so much fun. I actually love taking off out of John Wayne. It's one of my favorite places to fly out of.
For me and
You don't like it?
Nope.
I would much
I do this
prefer
every single time.
that takeoff strategy than the one out of Vail, Colorado, because out of Vail you have to come in the mountains. So the landing is, whoop, and then you hit, and you're like, oh my God, we just went through the mountain, and then yeah, same type of deal, right? And then you go straight up, and you only get so high over the mountains, and then you kind of crest down. It's a little bit scary. So anyway, it's fun, especially if you ever do it on a private jet, because those guys don't care. They're like flying Air Force
That's
jets.
why they make those jobs
Yeah.
that fit you so conveniently.
Metal too.
Yeah, very metal, very small metal piece.
Yeah.
So what? No, but if you ever get to go to one of those places in a private jet, you should do it, because it will scare the hell out of you. So it's different. When you fly American, they don't do it quite that bad. But all right, so we kind of fell off the cliff. We took off out of John Wayne. We fell right off. And now we're heading down in a time where we should be heading up, or at least stabilizing. We're not really seeing that. So,
Jason?
yes, ma'am.
On this map, or this graph that we're looking at, what would be good? Which one of these points, levels, what would be good? Because 21, is kind of, it was such a crazy year.
Crazy
So it's hard for me to put that into any kind of perspective. Like, what would be a better
I think.
look of this?
Is a good question, and I think in all honesty, even like a 50% move up, somewhere in this range,
Okay.
you'd be fine.
Okay.
Because still had pretty decent activity in '22, and that
Right.
would put us back to those early '22 days.
Okay.
And you'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
You'd see movement. But anything below probably this 235 number is really, really slow.
Okay.
It's actually the slowest it's ever been in my career, and I'm old. I've been here for 30 years. So in 30 years, we've never had apps this low.
aged himself.
I know, I really did. So I'm not like Tina, I didn't start yesterday. I can't claim to be 18 anymore. I mean, I can try, but the beard usually gives it away. So, okay, let's do some interesting real estate news. So number one, I didn't think I'd ever hear that there was homes in the United States, or I guess I should say cities or towns in the United States, where you had $1 million starting price for $1 million entry-level homes. And we have a lot of them. Actually, 239 cities at the start of 2025 have $1 million entry point, which is bonkers crazy, right? And by the way, when you look at it, it's not just the obvious places. Well, you always think about California. I was going to say, definitely that's the obvious one. But, all right, New York, I get it. But there's 32 cities in New York. If you've ever been through upstate New York, like I have family in Syracuse, it's not the ritziest place on the planet. But there's 32 cities in the city, or in the state of New York, that have $1 million price points. New Jersey, of course, there's parts of New Jersey, very, very nice. But then Florida, Massachusetts, Washington, the problem, that's what it is, by the way. If you've ever been there, you need to get through as fast as you can, because they will tax you the entire way. Like, every mile on the freeway is an extra $1. So, but, and again, we talk about Massachusetts, and in particular, Boston being expensive, right? But once you get outside of Boston, it's not really that expensive. It's not terrible. There's places, in fact, I've got a loan for a couple moving down here right now. They're selling a home at like $450-ish in the Massachusetts area. So it's not the most expensive place on the planet. Now, what is interesting is, remember I said that I just saw the article this morning about Texas, Florida, Las Vegas, Phoenix, blah, blah, blah. Well, also in that article, it mentioned that the only place where prices are still going up in the United States at a good clip is New England. And I can tell you from our experiences up there. Well, I'd only want to live there in the summer. That's the thing. It's summertime in New England is kind of like San Diego weather in most cases. It's beautiful all the time. It's great nights, great mornings. But after that, I wouldn't want to be there. So I don't get it. But there is a lot of movement in that. And actually, the funny thing, we had a client that moved here last year from just outside of Boston. And I knew when I first talked to him, like, y'all aren't going to like this place. Well, sure enough, they're moving out a year later, and they're selling their home and going right back to New England. And one of her reasons, now she's a little cray-cray, so don't read too much into this, but one of her reasons was we only have fake conservatives in Texas, not the real ones and I want to say like from Massachusetts? Seriously? I've spent a lot of my life in that part of the world. There are no conservatives in Massachusetts, but we have fake conservatism here in Texas, so that's why she was getting out here. So hopefully she's not on this live stream somehow. Yes, ma'am?
I don't understand why they wouldn't like New England in the winter, because it averages on the North Shore and the South Shore, it averages 50 degrees, and the reason and you know that, is it has like at least 20 wineries. And you have to have that. because
Have
you
to have that.
good wineries.
So what's interesting so her comment is that New England's not always super cold.
It's cold.
But it's more a function of how close you are to the water, I would say. So like I know in my wife's hometown of Portland, Maine, which is just north of Boston, if you're within about 5 miles of the ocean, you have a pretty temperate winter. It's not too bad. But then when you get a little bit further off of that or up in the mountains, it gets to be ridiculously cold. So I do think it depends on where you're at. But yeah,
I've
Not too
lived
bad.
there for 10 years, and I didn't see anything like that on Long Island. But,
on Long Island, yeah.
up in Syracuse and way up like that, I mean, they had like 6 feet, 8 feet of snow.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, we've been to Syracuse. When I was a kid, we were there several times during the holidays, and it was just snowmageddon all the time. Yeah, just bonkers crazy. So,
Just for you.
just for me, that's what I kind of thought at the time. I really liked it. My parents didn't like it so much. Probably the first time I heard my dad say a 4-letter word. So, all right, Here's the other thing that's kind of interesting. We've been talking about this for a while. In fact, I've been telling you all this since about 2022. But U.S. households need to make on average $114,000 to buy the median price home in the United States that's for sale right now. Now, and even worse in Texas, by the way, because Texas has ridiculous taxes and even higher insurance now. So this 114 is not even a true number in Texas, in my opinion. It's probably 135 to 145 in Texas, or at least in the Dalles Fort. Yeah, it's crazy. So I've got 2 college-age kids, and they talk about what they want to do after they get out of school, and they might make a comment, something to the effect of, well, I just want to make sure I can make a 6-figure income. Well, 6-figure income doesn't get you very much in Texas anymore. So that's not true. In fact, I would actually venture out from when I started in my career to today, that number is now a 7-figure income if you really want to make money. Because back then, 150 was a lot of money. And today, that gets you a starter home in DFW that you're not going to like. So that's kind of crazy to me as well. We've had a 70% rise since 2019. 70% since 2019. I was actually thinking about it this morning when I heard that whole, things are going down. If you really think about it, I think we just had our 1970s moment, basically is where I'm going with this. I've never seen inflation like that in my lifetime that I remember, and I'm hoping we don't have it anymore. But it's bonkers crazy to me how much more expensive everything is right now. Everything.
The thing is that you have greed in our country, and
Yeah.
everything, when the prices go up, they're going to stay there. And there's no one that is going to tell them to lower it at all. We're just putting less regulations on companies and putting less taxes that they have to pay and less everything else. And so it's going to be like this until somebody gets their head out of their tuchus.
That's
It's-
not going to happen. We don't do that.
It's just going to stay this
Yeah.
way. So, it's one of those that, I've been complaining for a while, but it's like I'm just blue in the face. There's no reason to complain about it. It's just going to continue the way that it is, and it's
I agree.
actually just going to get worse.
I agree. I think it's only going to continue to get worse. I agree. All right, one of the things you've heard the new administration do is they've been rolling back all these housing programs. You've probably heard that story out there several times. It's mostly true. The one that they roll back that I have the biggest problem with is this one. So I have a buddy of mine that works for a place called VRM, Vendor Resource Management, and they handle all of Freddie Mac's VA foreclosures. He started telling me after the inauguration, he's like, our inventory just went up 50%. And then like 2 weeks later, he goes, hey, our inventory is up 100+%. And now he tells me his inventory is up like 6-fold from the beginning of the year on the VA foreclosures. And this is the reason why, because the government rescinded a policy that basically put a moratorium on VA foreclosures. What they would do is they would go to the vet and say, we'll put you on we'll modify your note, put you on a 40-year term with a 2.5% interest rate, regardless of what you had, and any payments you missed, we'll just tack them on the back so that you're just kind of current as of today, move forward with a new payment. And that's what they were doing to help vets stay in homes, and we eliminated that. It's completely gone. And so now he's so busy he can't see straight. He has that many VA foreclosures, because it's almost like we've had 4 or 5 years worth of pent-up VA foreclosures they're just now getting. So my beef on this one, look, I'm definitely the guy in the camp of you took it out, pay it back, make your payments, do what you're supposed to do. But these guys did something I wasn't willing to go do. So at this point, I would say let them go. I know. And by the way, there's only something like, they said 20,000 that got help. There's only something like 2 million VA loans in the entire United States. It's not a big number. So we're not talking about a whole lot of people here. Like, they could all go delinquent and you wouldn't see a blip in the delinquency rates in the mortgage market, but we're going to pull them out of it. So, all right, so hopefully that one will change. We're hoping that one will go back a little bit. Okay, here's the other thing that's starting to creep in, guys. It is now cheaper to rent than to buy. And this has been true in Texas for a little while. That's the new construction next door. Okay, here's a real world example of this. I've been preaching this is coming for a while, and I've now, I put this in the presentation 2 weeks ago when I started working on this. And yesterday I got a phone call from a client of mine that we were, or at least we think we are, working on like his 4th deal with us. But he did a little bit of research. He wanted to buy a $570,000 house, and he did a little bit of research in the market. The rent in the market for that house in the neighborhood he wants is only $3,400 a month. His payment at 10% down was going to be like $4,400 a month. So it was $1,000 more expensive for him to own it versus renting it. Now, so the question he asked me, and I was like, man, that's kind of a loaded question. I'm not even really sure I should answer this, but he said, can I bank on appreciation to make up that delta? And I'm like, I don't think I would say that. I mean, you might, it might work. It's possible. I can show you the math where it probably could. But the reality is it could also be stagnant for a few years. And so he kind of looked at that going, I don't think I'm going to buy then. I think I may just rent. He's going to move out of his current home that he owes almost nothing on. I think he owes 40 grand on, it's almost paid off. He's got another investment property that's paid off. He's like, I'll just finish paying this one off, rent it out. I have 2 investment properties free and clear, feeding me money, and I'll pay $3,400 in rent over there and save $1,000 a month. So that conversation just happened yesterday. So we're seeing more and more of that.
Going up too, it's ridiculous.
And I did tell him that. Correct. And we went through all that, and I told him all that. And he's like, rent's 100% interest rate and all of these things, and but again, he's an engineer, so he's very analytical. He's like, but it's $1,000 a month cheaper. And so anyway, by the time we went through all of it, I think he thinks he wants to rent. We'll see. I gave his agent the heads up, like, hey, here's a conversation we just had. I tried what I could do. You need to try what you can do. But it's interesting. So, all right, year-over-year sales prices are up 83% for the top 228 U.S. metros, according to NAR, which means your average sales price up here is $402. With a 20% down payment in most places, that's $2,100 monthly payment before taxes and insurance, which is a big, giant number, right? And the average rent cost, I think it was up here a minute ago, are quite a bit less than that. And so now that's the problem we're running into. So I think this is going to continue to kind of capture everybody's attention a little bit.
So to Ann's point though, when is that number going to, I just wonder when that's going to actually level out as well, because greed.
Well, I think
And their
rent will
taxes
continue
are
to go
going
up.
up, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, the owner's taxes are going up, their insurance is going up. The house is going to age, it's going to need repair.
Yeah.
So the only way that they can cover that is to increase the renters,
Yeah. The
you know,
cost.
monthly.
That's right.
And so it's one of those, it's like, when is that, I'm just wondering when that number's going to level back out, if it's,
I think it will. And honestly, what I think is if we could get a handle on our insurance and get prices to come backwards a smidge, I think it would level out pretty quickly.
yeah.
Because to your point, a lot of the landlords that I know are telling me that they haven't been able to raise rent as fast as they need to because they would just push out their tenants.
Right.
So they've been creeping along the last couple of years, and they need to go higher. And I think if we could get affordability to come back in line, that would help. But
Yeah.
to be fair, if we don't get affordability in line, why would you? I mean, $1,000 a month difference is actually a decent
And the
amount,
houses
right?
are depreciating, so they can't do,
Well,
they
and
can't pull some of that out either.
To your
because-
point about maintenance, one of the other things that he was telling me, he goes, not only am I saving $1,000 a month, but I don't have to change out a light bulb. Which is true, right? He's like, I don't do that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I hate government control of anything. They need to put a cap on insurance. I mean, something you were talking about, we need to take.
They do something.
They make a lot of money even when there's a disaster. And if there's a disaster in Hawaii, we're going to pay for it.
That's right.
There
I
has to
agree.
be something. What
Yeah,
can we do?
I don't know what the answer is there, but I'm kind of starting to come along to your line of thinking on that as well. Because what gets me a little bit is, you know, I'm a stocks guy, a Wall Street guy, so I pay attention to that world. So these insurance companies come out and post record profits, but at the same time they screech because they're not profitable enough and they need to raise premiums. I'm like, at some point, if you make record profits, you're doing okay. You probably can hold the line for a little while. But yeah, I don't know what's,
They're hiding their money in the islands, and everybody thinks, you know,
yeah,
like the Caymans was a big thing.
Yeah.
Used to be there all the time, see
Yeah.
all the big insurance companies over there, and now they're in Switzerland.
yeah. And they are hiding it, for sure. But,
Then
so
I have to pay for it.
could you get the government to step in and create their own insurance company and just operate it on a nonprofit basis? I don't know.
Some
mean-
government control.
Exactly.
But some government control is needed, you know, I mean, it absolutely is needed
Something
because,
needs to be done.
like, you know, if our taxes were actually working for us and not against us, it would be much different. And so if our government is spending our taxes to actually help us, then it'd be great.
But
That's not really what we're doing.
that's not what it is. So regulation and taxes and having it actually pay for the things that we as American citizens need, which
Yep.
is this kind of stuff.
Yep, agreed. Okay, let's talk about a few, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Paying price.
Call your senator.
Let's call your senator. Hey, by the way, y'all have already seen this, but the price of a new home is basically the same price as an existing home. That's bad for me, right? Because the price of a new home is now basically the same price as an existing home. You can buy new construction. In some cases, you could even buy new construction at this point cheaper than an existing home. Now it's a smidge more. I think that's home dependent, right? Because I know plenty of 70s homes that are just falling apart. So, but I also know several 2010, 2015s that are falling apart. So, but bottom line is when you're a buyer looking out there and you're going, all right, let me buy your home. I think the average difference right now is about $13,000. So we were just having this conversation a week and a half ago with one of Mike's clients about, do you buy new or buy existing? Well, I can buy your existing home for roughly the same price as your new home, but I've got all your maintenance issues that you didn't tell me about or you covered up, and I've got to pay a full boat mortgage payment and normal prices. Or I can go to the builder and they baked in 40 grand worth of concessions and they'll give me all this stuff, including a 3.99 interest rate and in theory a home that doesn't need a lot of new maintenance on it, things like that. So this is something that's interesting. Normally you see this really big delta right here. And so just right here in 2020 is where it got a little bit closer, and now we're still hanging out kind of tight. So I think we'll see what happens on that. My desire is for that to change because it influences my business directly. Here's a little bit of an idea, kind of annual change. This is what's causing it too, by the way. This is annual change of new home prices versus existing. Existing still continue to go up, but new has actually come down. And I did a presentation today with Highland Homes, one of the other speakers there, and I can tell you they are in full-blown come see me mode. Like, let's make a deal mode is all they talked about. So, and he talked specifically about they're selling most of their homes below what the existing homes are in the market around them. So it's getting to be bigger and bigger. So the last thing that's kind of interesting to me is, what does it look like specifically here in the South? Well, we're real close, except for the West, where their existing home price is quite a bit higher. We're the next closest one, and we're almost right on top of each other. So even though the national number's relatively close, we're even closer here on this side, which is crazy. So that's part of the reason why we're seeing so many builders here. Okay, Texas is leading the charge in property taxes. We complain about this all the time, and I saw his chart. Like, clearly the darker shades are not good, and you can see that Texas is right up there. This one kind of surprised me, and I guess because I do business up that direction, but I didn't realize the tax rate was that high. But outside of that part of the world, you got to get over to the East Coast before you get to higher taxes.
Yeah,
So it's
but
kind
the
of
home
crazy.
price is still under 100K, so.
True. So you get exactly right. You can pay 2.8% on your taxes. By the way, first-time home buyers account for 58% of all mortgage transactions. I think this was in Q2, Q1 if I remember right. So 58% of all mortgage transactions in the first quarter were first-time buyers. So that just goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The normal buyer, move-up guy's not doing it right now because he doesn't necessarily need to. And if you're not dabbling in the first-time buyer space, you're probably missing out. Because it's really, if you go 58% of all mortgage transactions, and then you throw on top of that about 30% of all transactions are cash right now, it doesn't leave you with a whole lot in the middle. It's like it's either a first-time buyer or I got plenty of money, I don't need you type of deal. Okay, second homes. I love this one because, number one, I get phone calls all the time from people who go, hey, I'm going to buy this home in my neighborhood, and it's going to be a second home. Nope, it's not. Second home, we are not a second home destination. And when you look at the top spots across the entire United States, only one showed up in Texas, and that's down on the coast. Everything else is on the eastern seaboard, basically. So we're just not seeing that. When you look at the chart that goes with it, basically, what's interesting I thought out of this is these are all northern areas. These are places where they have more second homes or they have the highest concentration of second homes. And if you look at it, you got Wisconsin, Michigan, amazing until the winter gets there. Maryland, Delaware, kind of a similar situation. Colorado makes perfect sense. I didn't fully understand the South Carolina, North Carolina, other than the fact that it's on the ocean. That was the one that kind of,
Myrtle Beach,
and it is Myrtle Beach. So I mean, that's I get that. Florida, okay. North Carolina, another Florida. My part of the world, Portland, Maine, came up here as number 8. And then you get a few Floridas, and then you only got one area in Texas.
That's what I don't understand is Brownsville.
Say what? No Hawaii?
Nothing on Hawaii.
Well, I think it's price point in Hawaii, if you ask me, and hard to get there. Like, I would do a second home in Hawaii tomorrow if it wasn't an 8-hour flight each way. So, like, when I worked, it's not, what is it now, 8.5?
Be a 3-day boat ride.
Could be a 3-day boat ride, there you go.
There you go. You and Gilligan.
When I did MBS's, our corporate office was actually on the West Coast, surprisingly, and all of my compadres on the West Coast had second homes, and all their vacations were in Hawaii because it was a 4-hour flight at most. And I was always so jealous. I'm like, that's the same as me going back to New England. And they get to land in Hawaii, which is really pretty cool. So, you'll take, yeah, versus the 3-day boat ride, you better believe it. Okay, still housing inventory shifts to a buyer's market. We just talked about this a minute ago. Y'all are right. If you thought it was a buyer's market, it is a buyer's market. I would go out on a limb and say, even though people are telling you that the stats don't necessarily support that everywhere, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So at this point, the buyers believe it's a buyer's market, so it is a buyer's market, right? And they're approaching their negotiations that way. And if you do not negotiate even during the option period, they will cancel their contract. Because I lost over $1 million of canceled contracts just in July. So, because they were like, I'm walking, I'm done.
I'm standing
So-
right in the middle of it, and it's a buyer's market.
And it's a
So-
buyer's market, agreed. I even had one of my deals
I'm
that,
my knees in it.
I'm
so
up to your
yeah,
knees in it.
It's a buyer's market.
One of the loans that I lost was a second home out on PK. And when I was looking at the Realtor.com pictures of it to kind of get some information before I called the client, I could tell the walls were crooked. I'm like, and I was like, so I call him, I go, David, does this house have some major problems, right? He goes, oh, is it right out there? I don't know.
Bedrock, I mean,
I know.
everything's so rocky.
Well, and this was kind of up on a cliff somewhere, and so he did say there was a lot of fill dirt or stuff around it, I guess, I don't know. But yes, he goes, yeah, it's all broken apart. Because we're going to negotiate with the seller and get them to pick up some of the cost of doing the foundation work. The seller said no. No dice. They weren't giving it to him in a great deal either. So he walked away. So I don't blame him for that one, but I thought it was interesting. I'm like, how often do you walk into a home and you can see the walls are crooked?
Yeah.
I could see it in pictures. And I told him, I said, David, if I can see it in pictures, I can't even imagine how bad it is in person. He goes, oh no, it's worse in person, for sure.
It's like, this is not worth it, sweetheart.
No, not a good decision. All right, let's get some real estate numbers and then get you guys out of here. So existing home sales for the month of June, latest data just came out last week. We were down to 3.9 million annualized units. Almost feels like a broken record now because we've been hovering around this 3.9. In fact, hey, we were there in June of last year also, by the way, 3.93, 3.93. So we've said before, 4 million is kind of the bottom. The good news is it is the bottom. The bottom is holding, so we're not going below this. But at the same time, we're not moving up off of it. And in history has been that we always move off of that number pretty quickly when we hit it, and we're not doing that this time. And right now, we're not really sure what the catalyst is going to be to move us off of that number either. So that's the thing we're a little bit worried about. Home prices, we just kind of eked out a zero, or I'm sorry, this is existing home sales still. So we're basically flat year over year. We just showed you that. The last 4 months, we were actually down from the 2024 numbers. We do believe, by the way, July is going to be less than July of 24 as well. So we think we're going to continue, we'll call this zero probably month number 5 of being worse than the year before, probably about to hit month number 6 of being worse than the year before. So if you think it's hard, you're right. I would also say this though, this is a great time to stay in the business if you can, because so many people are bailing because it's hard, right? We're seeing that across the board. If we're seeing it from our agents, we're seeing it from our loan officer account, we're seeing everything. People are like, I'm out, I'm done. And if you think about it, basically what we've experienced this year is they kind of hung on through the buying season. Now that the buying season is starting to slow down a little bit, they're like, hey, the next couple of months are going to be really hard. So let's just get out of here. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. So I'd encourage you to stick with it because you may be one of 20% left when it's all said and done.
Didn't we see a number recently of the, like we have, like the real estate schools, their number went down tremendously of enrollees or something? Why do I feel like that was a number that we looked at recently?
I haven't seen it, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Like
surprised
the
by it at all.
number of people entering in had gone down.
Yeah.
And then also the number of just total agents has gone down
has gone
too,
down.
so.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about the agent count is even though the agent count is down a lot, it's much easier financially to be an agent that's not super active than it is to be in the financial services or the lending space and not be active. So you have a lot of agents that I think have gone somewhat dormant or back to dual career and working full-time.
Yeah.
So what was crazy was I had one of my loan officers tell me the other day that he got a phone call from an agent of his he's done business with for over a decade, very high producing agent, and they called him to say, he spends a little bit of money with them each month, and so they called to say, hey, by the way, we're not going to charge you anymore because we're going, basically they went and found another job. They're like, we got to go do something different. We're not making enough money anymore. And he was just so surprised because they had been so successful that they were going to do that. All right, let's talk MSAs here. Fort Worth MSA, we were down 8% on home sales year over year. So the national number was basically flat, right? But for us, we're off 8% on the Fort Worth side, and then the Dallas side wasn't much better. It was it was technically up by 0.9%, so essentially flat. So Dallas at least hung in there. We actually went down a little bit. So starting to see that and feel it more on the Tarrant County side for certain. When you look at the pending sales numbers that just came out literally a couple days ago, June was down 2.8% year over year. So we were 3% lower than we were this time last year for pending home sales. And if you look at it, only the Northeast was higher. Everything else was quite a bit lower. So the South, the West, and the Midwest all coming in a little bit lower. So that tells us what July sales are going to look like, and we think they're going to be lower at this point because pending home sales are lower. All right, when you look at the Fort Worth, look more locally, the Fort Worth side, we were basically flat. So we actually outperformed the market on this one. I was kind of happy to see that. On the Dallas County side, we were up about 3%. So from a pending home sales perspective, at least here locally, we might actually outperform the market a little bit. That's not bad. I'm okay with that. As long as our home prices don't continue to go up a whole lot, I don't mind outperforming the market on the home sale side. The confidence index survey, which is really just a fancy way of saying more data. Days on market continue to decline, 27 versus 22 on a national level. And then the other thing you're seeing is first-time home buyers still hanging out in that 29-30 bucket. First-time home buyers in a normal market would be about 35 to 40%, just so you know. So there's definitely, even though we talked earlier that a lot of the mortgages being done are for first-time buyers, there's still kind of a slowness to that market. Investors are also down to 14%. They historically run closer to 20. So the investor market is really chilled out a little bit also. But one number you don't see move a whole lot, distressed sales. We went from 2 to 3%. By the way, the news will say we went up 50%, which is true. But we averaged 3 to 4 prior to COVID. So we're not even back to our average yet.
Percentages are so silly. But I do like that the sales to investors is down.
Yeah, I do
Like,
too. I do too.
You know, because that's been one of our biggest problems is that, you know, actual homeowners.
Can't get a house.
You know, owner occupied, they're
Yeah.
not able to get
Does
homes.
this include this number? Do you have off-market data in here? Or
No.
is-
So that's the thing you have to keep in mind is we don't have any off-market stuff because it doesn't, basically that stuff happens in the dark. We don't see it. So Mike made a good point a couple of months ago that because we're not seeing the off-market stuff, these numbers really are pretty skewed because there is a lot of off-market going on just at Keller Williams, right? So I think that's very true. This is just what we can see. But to be fair, the previous numbers we're comparing it to is just what we can see also. So it is a pretty good snapshot of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just not the full picture when it's all said and done. All right, median days on market in Tarrant County up to 42 is what we were seeing this last month. And then on the Dallas County side, that number is 45. More importantly, we're up 10 days from this time last year. So we're continuing to be on the market longer and have fewer buyers and move even more slowly. One of the things that we've also been talking quite a bit lately is that the market has really shifted to being more of a buyer's market, as evidenced by the fact that we have more sellers than buyers. And you're starting to see this on the news quite a bit. There's some argument about whether or not these numbers are legit. I'll tell you that up front. Some people don't believe that the buyer number is really that low. I don't know if that's true or not, but this is what at least is out there being reported, and this is what people are seeing right now. So again, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If this is what's on the news, and your buyer comes to see you this afternoon and says, I want to go buy this house, they're going to go, I'd like a discount too, because I'm one of the only buyers in the market right now. And that's the problem that the sellers are running into. All right, home prices. So existing home prices, by the way, still continue to go up. In fact, if you see this trend line, it always goes up. This has been true since the late 20s. It's probably not going to change. Even when we go flat, the trend line still is up. And so one of the things that we always share with our buyers is, hey, this is what the real world looks like. And the reality is you want to be on, like, we'll just use this as a great example. I would have loved to have been on the train back here in 21 at 354 versus 435, right? You would have made all that money in equity, essentially. And a lot of these buyers are buying at bigger price points than this. Those numbers are even bigger. So we share this with them now. I will say this, it is slowing down. The rate of appreciation is slowing down very quickly. When you look at the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, we were up 6.8, I'm sorry, this is all areas on the Redfin survey, which is a little different, up 6.8%. Nope, that's age of inventory, never mind. That's the wrong slide. You can ignore that one. I forgot I was going to kill that one from last week. This is the one I was looking for. That slide's in there by accident. So existing home sales up 2% for the month of June in sales price, but this trend has been down. You see we kind of peaked back here in December, and we've been moving down ever since. We think the July number is going to be a little bit lower, by the way, even worse than the 2% that we've seen. So we are still moving up. We're just not moving up that quickly anymore. All right, now we get to the Fort Worth stuff. Fort Worth basically flat, not even 1%. And on the Dallas County side, sales prices were up or down 1%. So basically flat is kind of what we're seeing. So nothing really special going on there, but at least we're not, to me, at least we're not free falling yet. But at the same time, I'd like prices to go down a little bit to make our affordability better.
And new home sales that have clearly come down in sales price.
It would actually be lower.
That probably makes up most of that delta that
Yeah.
3.7% number.
I agree. Yeah, the new home sales prices are definitely coming in cheaper. In fact, I see new home data and I pull it out of these presentations because, or I don't include it when I put stuff in because I don't really play in the new home world. But to your point, when I do see it, the prices are down quite a bit on the new home side. By the way, guys, 22 of the 50 largest metros have what they call now falling home prices for the year. And Dallas did hit the number. In fact, Dallas was right here, off a little over 2% year to date so far.
Austin, Texas, too.
Austin's still getting killed. Tampa's getting killed. So I have one of my best realtors is in Austin. She used to be up here and she moved down there years ago. She sends me clients all over the country. And I just talked to her yesterday. She said it's still an absolute cesspool in Austin because it's just a mess. Just a mess. My in-laws moved out of Tampa a couple years ago and they listed their home. And I promise you 1 month after they sold it, that market went right off the cliff. And it's been bad ever since. And this data just kind of supports it. But the scary part to me is, here we are bringing up number 3. So we're getting close. Phoenix, then you have San Antonio, kind of the same conversation. These Florida locations, even Houston's getting in on the act. Over here though, Ohio, so apparently Haskins is paying a lot of extra money for all of her stuff because she still has appreciation over there. And then she is. Haskins is sold by herself driving the market up. She's like, I know you wanted to accept $200,000, but I'm going to pay you $210,000. I'm going to help the comps in the area. So that's Haskins' rule. But anyway, you start to see some interesting shifts there. By the way, a month ago, 2 months ago, this number was mostly greens with a little bit of red, and now you're almost 50-50. I'll be curious to see what this looks like for next month.
I think it's funny, like, if you look at the areas, like all of the low, the majority of it is all, you got Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona.
All the places people wanted to move during COVID,
Yeah.
right? Those were the hot buttons during
And then
COVID.
these are all of the ones like we were talking about earlier that had the insurance and everything else. And then these are all of the Northeast and New England
No,
area.
insurance has got to be a huge driver of that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so.
Well, I mean, if
And-
you look at the areas, I mean, it's like everywhere that we're talking about that has like these crazy things going on. Also, the areas that are having natural disasters
Also going down.
are
Yeah.
also the ones that are hitting, you know, I mean,
I will say this, I've now had 2 transactions this year canceled because of insurance. So,
I'm
one,
surprised it's that few.
yeah, it's
How
so,
many just never even got into the boat and even put
Well,
in contact with you because of that?
I think part of the reason, so to be fair, I'm going to pat myself on the back here a little bit on this, and forgive me for saying it this way, but I think on my pre-approval side, I do a better job of preparing people for a real insurance number than what they get everywhere else.
Yes.
We run them at, 0.9 to 1% of the sales price, which has been pretty consistent. And most of the time, we're within 25, 30 bucks of what they actually get. But even knowing that, the ones that we lost this year came in at like 1.5 to 2% of the sales price. And the reason was because they had previous claims on the home. So if you've had a water claim on the home, if you've had a theft claim on the home, your insurance is going to be astronomical, even though you weren't the guy that did that. It does not matter. It's the history of the home that's the problem. If the home is a little bit older and hasn't been remodeled, you're going to pay an astronomical price right now. So we're actually to the point where I think we're going to start making our like sub $300,000 sales prices. I know that sounds crazy, but they're actually out there. That's all my pipeline this month. We'll start making those probably like 1.1, just to be safe, maybe even 1.2. So that's how high it is. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a builder rep.
Oh,
And,
perfect.
So my question is it standard now to get a Clue report when you're about to put an offer to kind of, I'm gonna say, keep that from happening? As
Great
far as
question.
like preparing your
seller.
buyer, if they're going to, asking the seller for the Clue report to
Yeah.
prepare your buyer for that insurance quote.
It's interesting. It's a great, so first of all, by the way, because I know we missed giving you the mic initially, but you mentioned being a builder rep and you were asking about why not Clue reports or something we should be looking into a little bit. So a Clue report, for those of you who don't know what it is, that gives them an insurance report of all the stuff that's ever happened to the house. And by the way, you too as an individual. So if you claim a bunch of theft claims all the time, you're going to get in trouble too. The problem is, number one, you have to be signed up as a licensed insurance agent, or you're supposed to be, to get access to a Clue report. So as a mortgage lender or a real estate professional, I don't think we could get access to that. I could be wrong, but I don't think we could. The other problem that I think you're going to run into is that on that Clue report, or to get that Clue report, you have to pay for it, right? So it's just an extra expense on top of what's already a very expensive
I
transaction.
mean, I tell all my clients to be involved, like even during option or like in a builder situation before
Contract, yeah.
pre-contract, to be kind of talking to an agent and getting all that together. Would an insurance
Yes.
agent not be able to tell you all that
Yes,
as well?
and that's actually where I was going with it, Tina. That's a great point. Was for me, we encourage, when I do my initial, you have a contract, we're going to go forward, here's my numbers, here's my next steps consultation, the last thing I leave them with is go get an insurance quote in the next 2 to 3 days for me. And they go, why? We'll get that later. I go, oh, no, I want it during your option period. So I would highly encourage y'all to be saying the same thing. Get it during the option period. So, because I can tell you this, on one of the ones that we got canceled on, they were not an option anymore, and that seller's agent fought back on the financing being in trouble. Fortunately for them, they were kind of at the top of their debt to income ratio, so it definitely put them out of qualification, and it was black and white. But the reality is, most guys are going to say, that's kind of a gray space and not my problem, if you're a seller.
There's a form in our forms library. It's a state association form, and it is information about property insurance. That's never been a required compliance form, but I got to tell you, I have been adding that to every buyer deal in their initial stack, and I make sure that I call it out, and we have a discussion about the importance of getting that insurance quote while you're under option,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise, you might just get your head blown off by the quote, and that will torpedo the deal, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, and I can tell you that.
And the sellers are always going to fight.
Correct, they're always going to fight. And I will tell you that the two deals that I remember specifically for this year were 325 to 375 type deals. Their insurance policies were over $6,000. Shopped at multiple places, like all over the place. And even Texas Fair Plan, which is your last resort, was like $4,500. And they just said, sorry, can't do it. It's just too much. So, by the way, to Haskins' point earlier, this stuff, I think, is what's going to hurt sales prices a little bit, because if I got to make up an extra $200 a month on my insurance, I got to take it off of something, right? Like, I'm not just going to pull it out of my Starbucks budget. So, yeah, exactly, no. So, it's going to come off your sales price, right? So,
out of my shoe budget.
no, it's not coming out. Or in Mike's case, the bourbon budget, like, we're not messing with this. It's just what it is. For me, it's Mexican food budget.
Your
Like I'm not,
McAllister's budget?
my McAllister's budget is very expensive, so I'm not gonna mess with that. Okay, so all the places we think know what they're talking about, which doesn't mean that they do, they're now really bringing down their expectations for home price increases this year. Fannie Mae's the lone holdout over 4% still. Everybody else is considerably lower. And these two guys think we might actually be losing price this year officially. I'm not ready to go out and call that, but I do think the MBA, which has been pretty spot on at 1.3, that feels about right. That, I think we're probably going to be in that 1.5-ish range, maybe 1.5 to 2 when it's all said and done. Again, on the stuff that we can see. What's more interesting to me,
Right about everything, so.
Zillow's always right about everything.
I'm really glad you didn't have the mic right there.
Yeah, I am too. By the way, PSA, I've said this a couple of times, so I apologize if you've heard me say it. If you want to see one of the funniest skits you will ever see in your life, go search the Saturday Night Live Zillow skit. You will laugh out loud.
Amazing.
It is so awesome.
That's just amazing.
Oh, yeah. Now, it's not safe for work necessarily. It was on Saturday Night Live, so it's not that bad, but
It
it's
is
not
now.
exactly safe for work. Yeah. In your office, it's like kid play. She's like, here, 3-year-old, watch this. Don't ask questions. Okay, so here's what I love is watching what these original forecasts were. That's the part that kind of got my attention. So even people like Wells Fargo, 4.9 now down to 2.6. Redfin, because they're wicked smart, they thought it was going to be 4%, now we're down 1%. So we're talking big moves down for most of these places, except Fannie Mae, which I still think they must be sipping Mike's bourbon because they went up from 3.6 to 4.1. And that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how they went up, but my guess is they probably will get called out for doing this. By the way, NAR did too. NAR's smoking something, right? They went from 2 to 3. Yeah, exactly. So I think NAR's going to get called out for that when it's all said and done. All right, housing inventory. Let's wrap up a couple things, get you guys out of here. So the silver lining has been all year, inventory is increasing. It still kind of is the silver lining. It's still as busy as it was back to July of 20 from an inventory perspective. That's actually a really good number. The problem is it's kind of done the little Orange County crust right here. Like we went straight up and then we've kind of chilled and we're falling back a little bit. So now the question becomes, what's it going to do this next month? That's what I'm going to be looking for. Because one of the things I've been reading is that new homes being put on the market month over month is really slowing down. In fact, we're going to show you some data on that here in just a quick second. So this is U.S. total active listings up 13% across the entire country. When you get to the Fort Worth side, we are up about 12.5%. But that's significantly lower than what we have been. We've been running like 20+% surplus from last year. Dallas County is still doing well, 32% over this time last year for inventory. But I will also tell you that Dallas County is one of the places, or the Dallas MSA is one of the places we're seeing prices come down. And I think it's because of this inventory number, right? You are definitely competing with a lot of people. So now, here's the part I mentioned a minute ago. New listings going on the market. Well, we actually were off 1% compared to this time last year. That number's been significantly higher all year, 10 to 20% higher every single month all year. And now all of a sudden, we just slowed down on the Tarrant County side, the Dallas County side, only up 2.5% year over year. So the concern I have is if this doesn't go back up, I know what you're thinking, just bless your heart. So if this doesn't go back up, then you're going to see that inventory start to kind of stabilize and not be as high as we want it to be. And that's going to bring, I think buyers are going to come back out of the market and say, I don't want to mess with this. Because the inventory we have is not great, right? It's okay, even though the quantity is picking up. Weeks of supply, we've basically been running 18 to 20, 21, 22 max all year. We're kind of seeing the exact same thing. We're at 21 on the Dow side. So a little bit more supply over there, but there's also a lot more inventory. And then age of inventory continues to creep up. We're now up to 57 days on average on the Tarrant side, and the Dallas County side is actually a little bit higher than that, well, actually roughly the same, right at 57. But what you see is that we're up 11 days year over year from this time last year. So last year wasn't the best year for most people, and we're already kind of tracking to head maybe worse this year. All right, interest rates. Kind of gave you the clue on this one earlier. This is as of Monday, when I updated this one, 6.77. I can tell you it's roughly the same today, not much movement. And we're just kind of hanging out underneath that 7 range, which is nothing special. The one thing that is starting to improve, though, So initially, when you look at this, this is the total mortgage rate, 10-year treasury, and then the spread, which is what Wall Street puts on these. This spread number needs to be down around 1.75, and we're still at 2.43. Last month, it was 2.53, so we are moving in the right direction, and I would even go out on a limb and say this 2.43 was more like 2.60 earlier this month. And so it's really even more than a 10-bit drawdown. It's really more like 15 to 20 basis point drawdown just for this month. Part of the reason for that is because we're starting to get to the fear factor in the market starting to cool a little bit for a couple of reasons. One is the administration has now proven to us that they're not really serious when they do crazy, stupid stuff. They always chicken out and go back. That's called the taco trade. Trump always chickens out.
Today is tomorrow.
I know, today is tomorrow, and you know, he just did 50% on copper. We're going to watch. I'm tempted. Copper prices were down 22% this morning. I'm tempted to go buy raw copper, not the tickers, not the actual copper itself. I don't have a place to put that, but I'm kind of tempted to buy it because I think down 22 will probably turn into up 10% tomorrow once they go, oh, just kidding, backed off. So
You need to ask Nancy Pelosi about
I do. I watch her stuff. She's crazy smart. That woman has, she's like a billionaire. You know that, right? She has like $1 billion. They're crazy wealthy. Oh yeah, and her trades are some of the hottest trades done by anybody in Congress. And no, she has no inside info though, right?
Can I ask you a question about
Yes.
the spread?
Yes.
You know, I go back to every one of these meetings, and I love the fact that you talk about that and how clear you make it. My question is this: we're seeing applications down, right? And that continues. Is that what the pressure point is going to be to move the spread back into reality? I know you've explained this in the past as well. This is because we in the mortgage industry feels that as soon as rates start to come down predominantly, we're going to see a huge refi influx. And I see you're showing us those 4 or 5 times when we had application spikes. We're
Refi.
making that very clear. That's still a thing, but at some point, are they just going to go, well, I guess something is better than nothing?
You know, it's a good question, Mike. I personally hope you're right, and that's exactly what they're going to do. My personal belief is, and forgive me for using the same example again, the McDonald's example I've been given forever. You know, prior to COVID, guys, we had a $1 value menu at McDonald's. I'd stop in every day, give me a drink. Any size drink, 99 cents. And there was always food on there too. I just didn't order that. There was always a ton of food. And then that value menu, that $1 value menu turned into a $5 value menu like in 23. And McDonald's had a massive backlash from customers because it had just gotten to be so high. So they made a big deal about bringing it down. Well, now it's like a $3 value menu. So yeah, we're not 5 anymore, but we're not 1 anymore either. And so I think you're going to see the same thing on this spread. I think 175, which has been your historical norm as far back as we've been tracking it, is going to turn into 2. I think 2 is the new 175, basically. And so really, we have about 40 bips to drop down, 40 or 50 basis points to drop down before the spread's not going to help you anymore. I think the catalyst for it coming down is a combo of what you just said, the market seeing that, so number one, something's better than nothing, right? I can tell you that in our personal business. Like I got shopped with Rocket the other day. We always beat Rocket. I don't know what happened, but they beat us this time, and I was just shocked. And the guy's like, can you match it? Well, that doesn't work in our world. We don't really match it. But as the business owner, I can drop out my margin that I use to pay the branch and do the deal, and I did. I wound up doing that for the guy in order to help keep his business. So for me, that margin compression was a real thing. Like I didn't make very much money on that deal. I think what you're going to see is the secondary market says the same thing at some point. They look around and go, hey, margin compression's legit, and we'll just have to deal with it. I think the other thing that's going to help, though, is the fear factor that's created this higher margin spread is starting to dissipate. And that's where I was going with the taco trade. Now that we know that, hey, he is like, throw everything against the wall in a crazy, unrealistic size and style, and then bring it back down to reality when everybody balks. I think now we're seeing that happening more and more. We're kind of getting used to it, and this thing has come down a little bit. I think the other thing that's about to happen is the Federal Reserve is going to probably start dropping rates in the next 2 meetings. I'm going to say 2 meetings. It's possible it's the September one, but it's probably the October one when you get your quarter rate drop. Not a big number, okay? And I will say this, it has to be because inflation hasn't really kicked in on the tariff side yet. And we are seeing that happen right this moment, so I could be completely wrong on this. But if everything stays status quo, I think the Fed will give us a quarter rate drop just to make the world feel better. And the bond market will react to that with less stress, and then you'll see the spread come down a little bit even more at that point. So that's what I think could drive it down a little bit.
I've been dying to pick your brain on this, so we'll do this after class, but there are some initiatives out there to remove the federal funding rate. In other words, there is no longer any interest being paid just to hold the bank reserves at the Fed, which, if you did not know, that was the way it worked prior to 2007.
Yeah.
In other words, if the Fed wanted to affect interest rates, they had to do it through actual real-world market transactions.
Right.
There's something about that that's coming back around as to being a topic of discussion. I'd love to hear, again, after
Yeah.
this, what your
Yeah,
thoughts are on
let's talk
that.
about it for sure.
I can't wait to hear your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, so last couple things for you here, and actually the last slide for you is, where's everybody's interest rate projections going? Well, this was updated literally just as we got into July, and you can see this is the end of the year average, 6.62. Kind of where we're at today, not a big deal. And then end of next summer, this is this time next summer, July of next summer, 6.43. Pretty much the same. The thing there's two things that would definitely change this. Number one, an actual recession would change this dramatically. It would make a huge difference. Number two is when they replace the Fed chair. Because he's going to replace the Fed chair, right? Even if he lets him go all the way through his term in May, he's still up in May. There's no way he's getting recommended for another term. So we're going to get another guy in. I think there's 4 leading candidates for it right now. And they've all been out on the news cycle saying, we're going to drop rates dramatically.
Hence the reason why maybe they don't need to have that power.
Correct. I agree. And that's some of the concern I have as well. Because you've got a bunch of money mongerers who are just saying, look, here's the bottom line. When you look at the people who are in line for this job, a couple of them are billionaires again. What are the billionaires doing? They're looking at it going, I can make $100 million in a day off of making a change that nobody saw coming. Right?
Well, what does it mean when you have the President of the United States and all their power having to beg one person at the Fed to make a ripple in the markets? That just doesn't seem right.
The president doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and the other person.
Well, that's not, well, thank you, but the point being is should any one person have that ability?
I don't necessarily think any one person should have it, but I also think, to Haskins' point, no one person should be able to berate the other one person into making it happen.
Agreed.
But
I'm kind of waiting with the news of the GDP number being a little rosier than they thought. I'm sitting back, I'm making my popcorn now, waiting to see Trump's latest insults on Powell. I'm kind of shocked. What are we, 3 days in, and I haven't heard much.
yeah, he's going to go bonkers on. I think so too. I saw on CNBC this morning they had this rundown. If I can find it, I'll screenshot it and put it in my next month's presentation. They're like these bullet points of everything economic based, and they're like basically, employment is fantastic. Everybody who wants a job has a job. Inflation is not great, but is not out of control bad, but it is a little elevated. Wages are as high as they've ever been. Just down, like all these points, there's probably 8 or 9 of them. And there was one negative in there, and they said the only thing negative in the economy really is real estate, by the way, which is us, and that's true. And so then they were like, that equals staying put. Because if all of these things are in the green, and they are, then that one thing being in the red is not enough to move the needle on rates, which means they just need to stay where they're at and watch
Right,
and see what happens.
because anything that happens in our sector has giant effects across the rest of the macroeconomy.
Correct. We're a huge impact on GDP.
Right.
So, yes. Now, here's the other thing, too. So, we did talk about this a little bit when the first quarter GDP came out, and it was a drop. And I said, be careful, though, because a lot of that drop is us importing a ton of stuff in front of the tariffs. Well, the reason this one is a beat by 3% is because we stopped importing a bunch of stuff. And when you don't import, you're not spending as much money, and you're sending exports out, your GDP number reverses. And so what we have now is I pulled all this stuff in the first quarter to avoid tariffs. And the second quarter, I sat on my hands, didn't buy a bunch of stuff, So my GDP was higher artificially. Where's the answer? It's probably somewhere in the middle. We're probably not really down 50 bips like we were in the first quarter, and we're not up 300 this time. We're probably up 100 basis points for the year. And that's what everybody's talked about the last couple days that I've heard. Is
Well, that
we're
comports with what
probably
we
on pace
feel
for
as just people, normal people as we're out there. I mean, like, the numbers can say the economy's great, but does anybody feel like it is?
No,
No.
no.
No,
Costco.
nobody
Go
does.
to Costco. It's empty, right? You can get into Costco? Or no,
like,
it's busy?
Everything I feel like is like, I walked in there the other day and just like the price of like everything just seems like it's super high.
It is super high.
It's because it is.
One of the things I notice is the restaurants, because in my family, we eat out on Friday nights and Saturday nights. And during the week, I go in and buy food from restaurants for various presentations. And up until a couple of years ago, it was hard to even get in the door to pick up my order. And now I can walk into any restaurant, any time of day, and grab my stuff and walk out with maybe 3 other people in there with me. So that, to me, tells me something's going on, right?
Except our place in Mansfield.
Except our place. Yes, you can still get a hot dog at Costco.
Padmore, that's a good hot dog for $1.52.
My wife asked me to go to Costco and get a hot dog the other day. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I am not eating a hot dog at Costco.
is Home Depot or Lowe's.
Okay, so that's funny. So Caskins just said, for those of you who can hear, that the best place for brats and hot dogs is Home Depot or Lowe's. My son's friend group of like 15 kids, 2 of the dads got together last weekend and took everybody to Lowe's or Home Depot for brats, and they made a big deal about it. They were all going, gonna buy this guy out. I'm like,
So there's
why?
normally a vendor outside. There's normally a vendor outside, especially the Home Depot and Lowe's that have a contractor pickup entrance or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
They always have, because the guys that are working, they need something. And I'm telling you, they've got that grill going when you're walking
Oh,
in.
it smells so
and
good.
They've got the grill going, and you just walk in there and you're like salivating, and you walk
Yeah.
in, you get your stuff, and you walk back out, and you're like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Yes, I
Yes,
am.
I am.
Yes, I
Yes, I am.
am. And they've got
Yep.
bacon wrapped brats. They've
Oh.
got other brats. They have onions.
Okay.
They've got grilled peppers.
And look, I like
You are
brats,
missing out, sir.
and you're right. Like,
Yeah.
that's the one place that really tempts me to buy a brat on the spot. I'm like,
It's-
oh my God.
I'm like, I can't get out of this darn
Smells
place.
so good.
Yeah, so good.
Yep,
Anyway,
agreed.
sorry, we digress.
I'm not going to Costco for a hot dog, just so you know. I'm not going to Costco for
You're right,
pizza either.
Costco's hot dogs are terrible. Lowe's all the way.
Lowe's all the way, I agree.
Or in my case, the line getting on the boat to go out to Alcatraz last week. I mean, imagine
Oh, I
walking
bet.
past a line of about 12 of those little brat stands. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I bet it was. That's right, we need a brat guy.
That's our next catering, it's the Lowe's guy.
So, besides brats, what questions can I answer for you guys, and we'll get you out of here, so.
No, I just always appreciate you bringing some of this to us. Sorry,
She's not used to being on TV like this.
I'm not. Like, normally it's just on, at 5
Yeah,
o'clock news.
and that's totally different, because they're just filming you.
Yeah,
So-
they're just like,
Look what this
they're like,
lady
why is
did."
she always in the screens after the tornadoes? I'm like, let me tell you what happened. No. Yeah, I'm that Texas girl. Anyway, with my overalls. No, I just always appreciate you bringing this, because it's as much, as it seems, it kind of pains you sometimes to bring some of the news to us
It's not always
about
great
what's
news.
going on and everything else. It's good to know it, and it's good for us to be able to have this information to combat the objections that we're seeing in our own
Yeah.
businesses. And so,
Hey, I use this helps me tremendously to put this together every month, because I use it every single month with
Yeah.
clients. Every month we talk about stuff in here.
no, I mean, some of the things, just from my mind, it's like, how can we get partners in the Northeast area for people that are coming,
Yes.
that are here,
Yes.
just kind of thinking outside the box. There was one other thing. Oh, and then just changing up our marketing to first-time home buyers, since they're making a rise when we haven't seen
Agreed.
them in there. We've been seeing a lot of the third, fourth time with the generational
Yeah.
stuff, but now we've got those first-time home buyers.
This is a golden opportunity.
Well, and I did wonder, on those first-time home buyers, is there any stat on gift money or double generation homes, and they're just
There-
putting it?
I don't know if I'll see if I can find a stat on it, but
Yeah.
I can tell you anecdotally from my business, it's a massive number.
Yeah,
It's at least 50% of the first-time buyers are getting some amount of money, whether it's 5,000 or 500,000, they're getting something.
yeah, I just,
is
because
crazy.
I'm seeing it within mine, but I'm obviously
Yeah. Hey.
a pin needle in the
My
full
430
market.
credit score pre-approval from yesterday is getting a $137,000 gift from her parents.
Can you ask if they are looking for a
A
middle-aged daughter?
That actually, that is in good standing financially and with the rest of society,
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Just because I'm seeing it, and so.
430 credit score. You know how hard you have to work to get a 430? Like, you have to wake up every day and go, I'm gonna drive this thing down a little bit more today. Like, let's get it down there. Let's get it going.
430 for a first-time home buyer's grant?
430 was their credit score.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Just,
That's all they need to get a first-time.
No,
He's
no.
saying he was shocked, but he said he was shocked.
A while back, and he had to have.
Yeah, no, you, so
620 is what you have
he
to
was
have
saying
for all
that
those.
somebody did an application and their credit score is 430, not that they were accepting it and giving them $1 million loan.
By the way,
All of my business.
little I know exactly.
Dan's like, I got a lot of 430.
Little PSA on the down payment assistance things, T-Shack and Seth are still going very strong, and we're doing a ton of that business. Unfortunately, for me, I've had a few people ask me about DHAP lately, and I am not a fan of DHAP. They're a pain in the tail. But what was interesting just last week, we got an email from the DHAP guy that said, hey, we know we gave you an approval, but we run out of money temporarily, so we can't actually honor it.
Oh, no.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So my point is, it's only July, and they already ran out of money. Now, this week, his tune has changed, and they can do something now because they have more money, but they're not sure if they'll have it past October. So wherever they're getting their money from, they're having to go pull more. But
I run out of
thought that
money
was crazy.
temporarily as well, so I completely understand.
I've only had one experience with DHAP, and in my case, it was a single person who had literally $100 of debt on a credit card that he keeps there just simply so that, the guy's a CPA, okay?
Yeah.
DTI was too high.
Yeah.
With $100,
Oh, yeah.
it's not feasible if you're not a big family with a lot of dependents.
Well, and I think personally, they look for reasons to turn loans down. My favorite one that they turned down was like a 2-acre lot with the house way up on one side, and the very smallest corner, like we had a survey done, it said it was like 4 feet of the corner on the opposite end of the 2 acres was in the floodplain, and they're like, sorry, it's in a flood zone. Like, the house is an acre and a half away from the flood zone, and we have an elevation certificate and flood cert to prove it, and they still said no dice.
Hell, look, in my guy's case, he wasn't even looking for the grant money. He just wanted to buy the house.
Really? Yeah, and they wouldn't let them do it?
Nope,
Yeah,
wouldn't let him do it.
yeah, yeah. I see that. Well, thank you for coming, guys. I really
Thank you, Jason.
appreciate it. So, yeah. Hey, by the way, we're taking next month off. We'll be back the following one. So we're going to be out of town.